welcome Jasmine. We have Rakesh Mishra, CIO at Vardhaman Textiles Groups. Welcome you, sir. And we have Samrat Datta, a consultative sales specialist at Siemens Digital Industry Software. Welcome you, Samrat. And today the discussion will be on digital operation, which is a very, very key element for most of the actions which happens at in business. And I would like all the participants to post their questions, if anything they have, so that the panelists can take that questions also in their discussion. And Mr. Ankur Basu will be moderating, as I said, and I'll request Vishal Nanavati to take it forward. Once again, welcome you all for this wonderful session, and next 90 minutes will be worth spending everybody's time. Thank you, sir. Over to Vishal.
Thank you, Mr. Kamath. Good evening to everyone. It's an honor to be partnering with FICCI on this initiative of running series of interesting topics around transformation. As Mr. Kamath said, today is the 5th knowledge sharing session. Friends, with Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, Make in India and PLI, they are the stepping stones in shaping our country as a global manufacturing hub. We all know that. Now, in that backdrop, today's topic is absolutely apt and timely in my view. Make in India, amongst other aspects, it aims to promote investments, encourage innovation, help create best-in-class manufacturing infrastructure. So now when it comes to infrastructure, which is linked to the topic for the day, I think so in my experience, it is only during recent times that we've experienced the pace with which companies have started to understand the positive impact of Industry 4.0 and the role of technology in transforming such business models. Now, when one looks at harnessing these benefits, it is not just purely to create a technology roadmap. To me, it has to be a subset of the business roadmap to begin with. It would not be out of place, right, for us. With the Davos just got over. If you recollect, the 2019 World Economic Forum at Davos, they came with this quote around the universal purpose of the company in the fourth industrial revolution. So today, companies are expected to not only cater to their shareholders, but the wider set of stakeholders, be it employees or customers, suppliers, local communities, societies at large. So on one side, relying on new age technology could be driven with cost-cutting measures, maybe driving efficiency at scale, large-scale demand-led production, overall profitability. But on the other hand, with linking to this quote from Davos, the companies are expected to be acting in a more responsible and a sustainable manner. Now, there are some very important questions in this backdrop, that are looming before the organizations today. For example, are you developing a comprehensive Industry 4.0 strategy? Is it comprehensive enough, or are you just taking ad hoc approaches to Industry 4.0? How are you balancing between the profits on one side and purpose on the other? How are you going to invest in the differentiated capabilities and upskill the workforce so that they have the right skills to succeed in such Industry 4.0 environment? Would you build the infrastructure or would you buy it out? There are tons of such questions. Today, friends, we've got an experienced panel, with senior folks who will share their own experiences in terms of challenges that their businesses are facing and how as true leaders have they helped their own organizations achieve the business outcomes. How are they going about deciding their own investments and assessing which of the Industry 4.0 technology, is having a transformational, profound type of an impact on their organization, whether it's IoT, it's AI, it's cloud infrastructure, big data, 3D printing, blockchain, advanced robotics, LMS, so on and so forth, right? There are tons of those, and we'll hear on most of those things today. But before we get into the panel, let me invite Ankur Basu from PWC, who will present before us some snippets around the trends in the digital operations and help double click on the likely solutions keeping digital at the core. Ankur, over to you.
Thank you, Vishal, for setting the context. But before I get into the topic of discussion today, I must thank FICCI for organizing this session, which is very timely, as Vishal mentioned. I also wanted to thank my fellow panelists and all the participants on the call today. The way we will run this session, I think, has been mentioned briefly already. I'll bring in some perspectives on what is happening in the digital transformation, especially in the manufacturing arena. I will also like to talk about some of the realities. And so I'll present some statistics from the analysts all over the world. Then eventually, I mean, the crux of entire discussion today will be most meaningful if we hear out some of the experiences, both from PWC perspective, also from the panelists. I will request, of course, during the panel discussion session as to what has been their experience in their respective companies, and eventually end the session with some of the key takeaways, some of the best practices, and how you can increase the success rate of your transformation journey. So with that, let me get into the first section of today's discussion. Arya, are we ready with the presentation?
Yes, sir. I'll just share that now.
All right. So while the presentation comes up, let me start by mentioning the fact that digital transformation is in manufacturing is perhaps not a new phenomena. I mean, if you look at last 20-30 years, companies in the manufacturing sector have been transforming the way they work on the factory floor. So PLCs, SCADA, anything that has got to do with process control on the factory side. I mean, these technologies existed 20-30 years. But what is the new narrative, and why has it become extremely important in today's context? The way we look at it is probably because of two reasons, and the narrative here is mostly around fulfilling the customer's need. Now, of course, we are all aware that the great pandemic has led to multiple constraints in the way production happen. The supply chain constraints, the constraints in terms of skill availability, the constraints in terms of raw material sourcing, pricing, etc. So while on one side there are constraints, the good part is the market is full with demand. Most of the companies where we are working have come up with the fact that there is extremely high amount of demand in whatever they produce, whether it is textile, whether it is automotive, whether it is heavy engineering. All of these companies are flush with orders. Um, so look at the situation. I mean, while there is a high demand, but we have constraints around productivity, we have constraints around supply chain, we have constraints around skill availability. So what is the right way to balance this situation? What is the right way to optimize your performance and productivity and capitalize on the situation that we have in hand? So multiple studies have indicated that digital is probably way to go. While I will show you some of the statistics which may not look very promising, but we still have a couple of success scenarios that I'm going to talk about. So Arya, if you could go to the next slide. So what are we saying here? And you see some numbers appearing on the right hand side, and this is a call out of various reports. And PwC, as you know, does a lot of research in the global market. So one of the things that is coming out very clearly is, while there is a push on digital, the amount of success that the manufacturing companies have been able to reap until now is not very exciting. So if you see the 70% number, it says that around 70% of the companies in the manufacturing sector are still stuck with what you call pilot purgatory. And this is one of the term which is my favorite. What it says is, companies mostly start their transformation journey by piloting on a technology platform, and the wrong approach in starting with a pilot kind of a situation is that these are generally long drawn. By the time you have finished your pilot, the technology would have changed completely. So you are stuck in a vicious kind of a circle and what is being termed as pilot purgatory. Lighthouse companies of World Economic Forum Siri report. This is one such report which is followed globally by every company who aspires to become digital champion. So here again, in 2021, FY21 rather, only 69 companies across the globe registered for Lighthouse category. And in India, the number is far worse. Only two companies, Tata Steel and Renew Power, got qualified in the Lighthouse category. Similarly, if you look at this 55% number, 55% of the CEOs across the globe, they still lack confidence on digital transformation and anything that is happening around it. And last but not the least, there is a significant skill gap. While you aspire to do transformation, but you are not really supported by the skill availability in the market. So essentially, what are those top three symptoms that we are noticing, because of which the digital transformation is in manufacturing is not picking up really? First and foremost is lack of interoperable standards. When you really want to evaluate transformation, or you want to evaluate the technology behind automating your factory production, first and the foremost thing is, how do I use my legacy technology and also bring in something which is absolutely new? And then there has to be a clear handshaking. Now that is where there is a big question mark. Are the technologies that are available in the market today interoperable? Second is, as I already mentioned, that the wrong approach of starting with a pilot program, and many of them leading to failure kind of a situation, impacts the confidence of the senior stakeholders in the company. And last but not the least, lack of trained manpower. If I look at the domestic market, the 5G, the delay in 5G implementation is causing a huge impact on many of the transformation programs that a couple of companies have already planned. So if you move to the next slide, while this paints little grim picture, there are good and nice examples also. So some of the companies which we term as front runners, they have been able to achieve success given all the constraints that we see in the ecosystem. So you will see that uh, companies in the auto sector, who are generally the leaders in terms of technology adoption, they have achieved significantly higher upside when it comes to productivity improvement. Similarly, consumer products. This is one example from P&G, 2.5 times the productivity. Oil and gas, petchem, 4% improvement in the yield. Schneider, which is an industrial product company, how they managed to do 22% improvement in the overall equipment efficiency. And my personal favorite is Tata Steel. I mean, Tata Steel is one such company in the domestic market, and I call it an institution. It's actually not a company. So they started digital transformation around a decade back. While we were all discussing about the maturity of the technology, the company went ahead and really laid a path for completely transforming the way the production happens, transforming the way the supply chain happens, and how does supply chain integrate into their production planning system, and the customer becomes the biggest beneficiary. So what you see, 10% improvement in throughput, this is humongous. I mean, if you look at the balance sheet of the company and you look at the 10% improvement in throughput, this would easily give you an idea that what is the power of emerging technology, and how companies can actually get a share of benefit if the technology is implemented correctly. So if you move to the next slide, we did a lot of analysis, and what we saw is the, yeah, Arya. what we saw as a common connecting thread between these successful companies is the way they look at digital transformation. So if you see on the right hand side, these yellow and red boxes, these are essentially the value drivers. So instead of starting with evaluating a technology, the companies actually narrowed down on what is my value driver? Why do I exist in this ecosystem? What is it that digital will lead to if implemented in, let's say, 3 to 5 years timeline. So it is very, very important to start with identifying what are my business drivers or what are my value drivers. What is not listed here is net neutrality or ESG. Many companies have already started talking about it. While it may not be relevant for some of you in today's context, but believe me, it is going to catch up very soon, where it becomes mandatory for every company to report on ESG and net neutrality. Now, if these are my business drivers, how do I translate it into something called smart factory? Again, my personal experience, when we talk to companies, they interpret smart factory in their own way, and there's no right or wrong in it. But to simplify the definition per se, we look at smart factory as a connected value chain. So right from the time you have received a customer order to the time you are doing your production planning, releasing purchase orders for raw materials, which is a procurement life cycle, and how does it fit into your overall production ecosystem, eventually the after sales service, etc. All of this connected, the red arrows that you see, creates something called digital thread. The other centerpiece for Industry 4.0 is data-driven decision making. So how do you get something called one factory, one data, or a single source of truth? Now, one of the biggest challenge that we see around in the ecosystem is companies who have gone in for standalone implementation of technology. They're still struggling with getting one version of, let's say, KPI reporting. And so what is the way to go? If you see these gray boxes, essentially these are the characteristics of a smart factory, right? Connected customer, digital engineering, how does it feed into your predictive and prescriptive capability? How do you create something what is called a real-time visibility into your production ecosystem? So all of this essentially characterizes the smart factory, so to say, and these are all enabled by technology which are appearing in the black boxes. So whether it is digital twin, MES, IIoT, there are multiple solutions, and every step in my value chain is actually feeding into my central piece, which is the big data layer, and on top of which you build your advanced analytics and BI reporting. So essentially, the common thread on all the successful companies who have been able to report higher performance on digital is the connected value chain. If you quickly move to the next slide, we did further research, and what we saw is the formula for success is essentially these four pillars. There might be more, but when we see the significant ones, we could call out these four success formulas. First and foremost is start with the future in mind. Okay, what is that big picture? Start with end in mind. um, how how would the organization look like in 3 to 5 years timeline? It is very important to dream the 5 years horizon and then start walking backwards to see what is important for me and create the gap between today and where you want to go in 5 years timeline. So this is one such characteristics of successful companies, that they started with visualizing enterprise of the future right up front. Second is organization led and not function led. Many companies whom we work with, when we look back into their history and we see that where are they in terms of digital transformation, we see that they have been doing digital, or they have been implementing various kind of emerging technology on a function specific, so to say, implementation. Now, very recent example, we were working with this customer, and during the interview session with the CEO, we asked, how satisfied or how happy are you with some of the digital interventions that has happened in your company? So one classic comment that he gave was, yes, the CIO had done couple of initiatives. Really don't know, I mean, what exactly was it for, but we spent significant amount of money in it. Now this clearly indicates that the CIO was probably driving some of these initiatives on his own without taking the entire organization behind him. So there was no buy-in from various functions. The third characteristics is bring in the right set of people to lead your digital. You see, this requires a specialized skill set, and it is not a part-time kind of an activity where people on the factory floor or various other functions who has a main role to play in day-to-day operations. It cannot be a shared responsibility for that same function to drive digital across the organization. You require a typical bent of mind with past experience to really lead an organization to digital champion category. So bring the right set of people. And finally, forge partnership. We have also seen many companies trying to do everything on their own and soon hitting a dead wall. Now, this is where we clearly say that today OEMs, product companies, system integrators, they are all willing to join hands with the manufacturer and really build up a story which is joint, which is on alliance kind of a relationship. So essentially, these are the four characteristics that really distinguishes some of the front runner companies with someone who is still aspiring to become a digital champion. Now, I promise that I'll talk about a few of the interesting case studies. So this is a customer in the engineering to order kind of a business. So they manufacture large boilers, nuclear power plants, and they supply equipments across the globe. So the company has been in business for 3 decades, almost $1 billion kind of a turnover, and they had a pole position in the domestic market. Last 5 years, the business actually has been going down for them, and the management was seriously thinking of closing the business, and that's when the CEO decided that it has to be looked at a different lens. So probably they were very, very traditional and were looking at the business in two dimension. But what is the different way of looking at things? And again, quickly become resilient and taking the position that they had lost. So PWC got associated with the company, and in 2 months time in our diagnostic study, we realized that there are a couple of challenges that the company is facing. The first challenge is the cost of operation is going up, and this could be because of cost of quality. This could be because of the raw material prices going up. This could be because of various kind of inefficiencies in the entire production process. So that's one side of the story. The other side of the story is there are multiple small time manufacturers who are giving them tough time in terms of price that they realize from the customer. So you can imagine that price going down and the cost of operations going up, that is leading to an impact on the margin that they make in the business. So what is the way forward? So after doing the diagnostic study, we came out with a couple of so to say recommendation to the company, and digital came out as one of the top recommendation. We also realized that while the customer is really beating them down on the price point, they are willing to give them a higher so to say price point if the manufacturer opens up the so to say the work in progress manufacturing process to the customer who is sitting offshore. Okay, so what we also realize more and more is transparency and visibility into the manufacturing process for the end customer really matters a lot. So one of the things that we designed as enterprise of the future is a capability where they can open up the factory floor to the customer, and the customer can log in and they can see the real-time welding process, the real-time cutting process, and how the quality is being maintained across the entire value chain. And the customer is happy to pay a premium price for it. Then there were multiple other opportunities for improvement. How do we improve yield? Which is by building in efficiencies in your machine which are age old. How do I improve my procurement efficiency in spite of given all the constraints that the company is operating in? So this is one such example where we helped customer relook at the way they were looking at digital transformation, and again bounce back very quickly and take a pole position. If you go to the next slide, Arya. Um, so in PWC, given our significant experience across the globe, these are the four, so to say, recommendation that we make to every company where there is a need for digital transformation. As I mentioned, it's very important to visualize the end and then plan your journey. Second is, today it's all about agility. I mean, gone are the days when people would stick to a project for 6 months to 1 year, and then you really don't know what would be the success rate. So agile is the way to go. And we define agile by a time period of approximately 1 month to 6 weeks before you really decide that yes, it's the right investment, or we should stop and quickly move to something that can give them higher return. So anywhere between 4 to 8 weeks is the most optimal to try out your hypothesis. Third and most important is create center of excellence. Today, the world has actually changed in terms of how you nurture talent within the organization. So center of excellence is one such recommendation where you create community of solvers from within the organization, and these are the set of people who can actually take transformation to the next level. Last and very important is govern and measure, look back and see whatever you have planned is what you are achieving. So all these four working in tandem actually increases the rate of success for any such digital transformation. If you go to the next slide, given all this suggestion, our starting point is the digital maturity assessment. So any company, whether it is in textile, heavy engineering, and I must also say that in the retail sector also there is a lot of transformation that is happening. It is very important to take a step back and see where you are in terms of your digital maturity. And PwC has come out with this 4-point scale. You start with a novice kind of a maturity, and then eventually you move to follower, innovator, and become a champion. So if you really have an aspiration to become a digital champion, um, which is the nirvana stage, where you have become absolute, so to say, resilient. You are predictable. Your function is reliable, predictable, and you have a pole position in the market. That is when you become a digital champion, where most of your systems and processes are autonomous, and the data is unbiased. You are looking at one single report. If you are running multiple plants, the situation becomes more complex. But a digital champion kind of a company is one who looks at only one dashboard and not necessarily look at 5 dashboards, because the chief sitting on the top, he is most worried about what is the cumulative productivity, what are some of the challenges that are so to say simmering across multiple factories, and what are some of those precautions or preparations that he should be taking. So he's looking at only one common dashboard. So we start with assessing the digital maturity of a company, and then quickly moving to strategizing, which is my next slide, Arya, as to how what is your digital strategy, and quickly creating a factory of the future or enterprise of the future roadmap. It is also very important to have OT/IT convergence strategy. I mean, if you are running a traditional plant and you want to become a smart factory or a digital champion, how does your operational technology integrate with your enterprise technology? And this is this is a very specialized subject, and we have seen that many companies still try to do things where the OT and IT layer is actually not integrated. Whereas if your core function is manufacturing, it is very, very important that if you're creating a factory of the future, one must essentially plan the data movement from OT systems to the IT systems. And that is where the architecture strategy becomes extremely important. The third step, and this is of course based on our experience, this is not available in any textbook or any literature, this is completely our experience, is to identify what are your quick wins. So as I mentioned, agile uh, and something which is self-sustainable, we call it self-sustainable, is because if you have invested on a capex, the leadership would be very keen to see results, and the leadership generally is very restless. I mean, go beyond one quarter and they start doubting whether my investment is actually making sense or not. So what are those quick wins, and which are those use cases that has the biggest buy-in within an organization? So start from there and then build the strategy for let's say 3 to 5 years timeline. Another critical area is the vendor strategy. Now, we all appreciate and know that technology is a commodity today, and if you look at a product, there will be 10 suppliers available in the market. But who do you choose as your partner? How do you strategize your partnership? We have seen umpteen cases where the company invested on a technology and they became saddled with an investment that really did not add any kind of value to their investment. So what is the vendor strategy? Finally, if you are really looking for a radical jump in your manufacturing processes, what are the platforms and the process change? And finally, rollout, governance strategy, change management strategy. So all of these included should ideally become the roadmap of the future. Okay, organization, people, and change is the foundation, and this is what came out as one of the most important perspective in our recent survey across the globe, right? So I'll quickly talk about one of the experiences that we had, very powerful case study. If you go to the next one, Arya. So this was a I would say 60-year-old global company that manufactures turbochargers. Okay, and turbocharger is a piece of equipment that is fitted on supercars. If you are driving a supercar, you would have a turbocharger. Many trucks have it. So this component was manufactured in 5 factories across 5 countries. The company had grown really to become a world leader in their product segment. And if you see the spread of the company on the global map, it is appearing there. Romania, Slovakia, China, and in India there was this plant available. So 5 plants essentially operating 24/7. There was a big problem in terms of cost of operations. So while they were flush with orders, there was huge amount of inefficiency in supply chain, huge amount of inefficiency on the factory floor. um, the um, uh, the resignation on the workforce side was extremely high. So people were getting trained in 4 to 6 months time, they would move on. So which means that the company essentially was perennially on a recruitment drive, and at the same time there was a failure in commitments to the customer. So they approached PWC and with one liner aspiration that we want to become smart, and what is it that is there for us to transform. So we embarked on this journey, and you see some of those matrices, and that's exactly what I was mentioning, that start with business first approach. Identify what are those KPIs, whether it is on the production side or supply chain side, and see how digital can enable in improving the key matrices. So today the company looks at one dashboard. uh, the head office is in United States, the factory is running in 5 countries, and it is only one dashboard which is being looked across all the operators across the globe. So this is the power of technology. And we were there with the customer right from conceptualization to implementation and also hand holding. And it has been a extremely enriching journey, both for the customer as well as for us. So net net, um, any such transformation has to start with my end goal in mind, and then creating something called benchmark, my digital maturity as on today, and then creating a roadmap that gives me a quick value. And I'm also able to create a sustainable kind of an architecture that will hold me for next 3 to 5 years timeline. Right. So that was more from my side. Arya, if you could go to the next slide, I think it is some of the key trends that we see in the industry. So, of course, the PLI.
Ankur, uh, Ankur, sorry to interject. I think so. This may be the last slide from you,
Yeah,
possibly. Yeah, but then let us try to see if we can now jump into the panel
surely,
discussion
surely.
also.
I'll just take 30
Yeah,
seconds. So,
yeah, thanks.
right, right. So the trend, and this is, I think we all are aware that there is a significant amount of push and various kind of impetus that is happening by the government. And so ONG, EV, textile, pharma, these are the ones which are growing very fast. Aerospace and defense, shipyard in the infrastructure category. Again, there will be big ticket investment that will be coming in. And finally, if I look at the industry 4.0 technology, the set of 10 or 11 technologies, some of them have become extremely mature. And so the customers are really asking for more and more about cobots, more and more about digital twin, artificial intelligence, machine learning, right? So that is the key industry trend as we have in the current context. Okay, so I'll just take a pause. Thank you everyone for being patient, and I would request participants to post questions on the chat window. And with that, I will quickly move to the panel discussion, if it is okay with you, Mr. Kamath.
Yeah, Mr. Ankur, you can drive the panel discussion. Mr. Kamath is just will join back. Meanwhile, you can run the panel discussion.
Surely, surely. Great. So, as I mentioned, we really wanted to hear from the panelists some of the experiences that they have some of the experiences in their respective industries. So let me start with my first question, that the companies have been delaying investment on large digital transformation, and probably COVID has brought in that sense of urgency. Some of the progressive companies across almost all industry verticals have either started the journey or are in advanced stages of making a decision. My question to you, Samip, if you are there on the call, is as a digital leader, what is your take on this transition? Samip, if you're there on the call.
Ankur, I don't see Sameep's name. Would you like to invite another panelist?
Surely, surely. So, Jasmine, if you could take up and enlighten us on what has been your experience in your company.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And thank you for that question, Ankur. Let's just take a step back first and ask ourselves that, hey, why are companies focusing so much on digital transformation? And how different is it from the regular digitization or digitalization that we anyways need to pursue and is a prerequisite to digital transformation in any sector or any section of your organization? Digital emphasis post-pandemic has come in from the perspective of automation. Can companies survive through uncertainty, right? The pandemic has hit the human race so badly in 2020 and 2021 that companies are looking at saying that, hey, whilst we have a lot of these topics being addressed on social responsibility, on our responsibility towards CSR and the environment, how can we be sustainable to survive through risk? That's also a big question, and hence the emphasis on digital transformation. Now, when you look at it from a manufacturing perspective and you say that, hey, in manufacturing 4.0 or industry 4.0, how are we heading there? You're talking about basic digitization of processes where it was an emphasis a few years earlier, being moved to digital transformation, saying, hey, can I reimagine the end-to-end shop floor process? Can I reimagine the entire pipeline? How can I transform? How can I just provide an input and expect an output? I know that's a more general hypothesis at this point of time, but without getting into more details, we're looking at how can it be easily sustainable end to end, right? From your digital engineering platforms connected to your digital supply chain, connected to your automated reporting and analytics platform powered by AI, ML, digital twins, and your IoTs that can really sense what's happening across factory locations, tell you or alert you when there's a risk that that has occurred or is eventualized, right? So you're looking at strategy itself being relooked from just a paper document or a digital transformation document to saying that, hey, who can I partner with out there in the ecosystem? Which are those startups out there that who are anyways becoming subject matter experts? My governance model has changed, right? So this is not just about digital. It's about saying that, hey, how do I govern across the organization? I know I need to upskill my employees. Is it easy to upskill? Or is it easier to just partner with industry experts and then leverage or deliver more value to my customers, right? So your entire strategy, end-to-end strategy has transformed, and it goes way beyond digitization. Of course, digitization has had a very, very, very strong impact and will have a strong impact in the future.
Thanks. You really touched upon a couple of crucial elements of digitalization, relooking at this strategy. And perhaps this was one of the area where many companies had a wrong start by looking at either a function or a technology specific approach. You also talked about skill being one of the critical elements for let's say improving your success rate. So thanks, Jasmine, for your response. Now, textile is one such sector. Of course, it is backed by PLI, but we also see that there are multiple greenfield projects that are coming up in the country. Um, there are a lot of developments happening on improving the production efficiency, etc. So my question, Mr. Mishra, what is your take on, so to say, the impact of COVID, and given the impetus that the government has, how did you really transition from pre-COVID to post-COVID? What are some of the experiences, if you could share with us?
Thank you, Ankur. First of all, I would appreciate, because the point what you have taken in your presentations found to be very much similar, or that is what I was putting, aligning, like what exactly we are doing, or the challenges what exactly we are facing. All the points you have pointed out over there, actually nicely presented. The points what I have underlined, like the digital strategy. Of course, like we have taken up the digital strategy from the big four company, and the IT/OT segregations. That is the important point that we are working. Soft floor visibility. That also is the one major point of agenda. COE. That is again we are working on that, and the strong supply chain. That is, of course, that is very much required. So coming to the point, I'm going to answer like what exactly we are going on doing with the post-COVID and the digital operations here, and particularly in the today's backdrop of the accelerating competition, change, and the complexity, because the change of the product, because in the textile, like the one product, any of the article is not similar with the back article, so the changing is very fast, and pressurizing the company to take the key business process to be more efficient, flexible, and we are on the tremendous pressure from the management, and they have bring up the two line of statement, like to have the quick response to the new market trend. That is very important, and meet out the customer expectations, because customer, we are taking them as a priority point. So before about the IT, I am going on talking. So what we are doing, before taking any assignment of the digital, first we consider the information security. That is the first point we consider, because internet become the integral part of the today's business, and the statistics says like 63% of the world population on the internet, and there are a lot of cases we like taking up from the newspaper. The today's ransomware continues to be on focus, that infiltrate the network, damage, lot of damages, and even they destroy the backups also. And organizations left with the binary choice, either to pay or lose their data. So we consider the security on the top priority. Number two, today running the business without data insights and analytics, akin like to running on the blind road. Means to say here, the organization generating lot of data, so we want to like how to keep those data, what would be the data warehouse, and how to present the data in a form of dashboard. That the point nicely you presented for some of the company, like the single dashboard has to be there for the different companies, underlying companies, because in our cases also we got around 26 manufacturing locations. So we also working on that, and I'm not naming the product over here. Just this is the second product we are working, and we started working with just taking the COE in place. Consider the next point importantly, like the speed of communication and the accuracy of the production data are vital to the decision support system, particularly in the manufacturing enterprise. The real-time data on the progress or the delay of the materials improve the visibility through the supply chain, and it bring up the what you call the link in the supply chain. So in order to improve the quality, reduce cost, knowing the plant performance, and the increase the customer satisfaction, so industry 4 solutions found to be the essential in the manufacturing setup. That also you pointed out well, actually. So it has got a certain KPI. We also working on that, actually. So we are evaluating a lot of partners. They are coming up, and the make Again, the KPI we have considered over here, like reducing the manufacturing cycle time, reduce WIP, FG inventory, eliminate the paperwork, reduce the sales lead time, and increase the yield. And the asset utilizations, these are the major KPI we considered. We record it and we are discussing, and we are like in a process like to have it at earliest. Because our organizations realize that there are the measurable benefit of the planning, scheduling, and the MES system that improve the yield and the customer satisfaction. That is very important. So, and you raise the very good challenges. That is what we are experiencing, because the technology continues to innovate, and keeping pace with the changes means constantly delivering the new front end experience. Always like bringing up the technology and just banding with the existing infrastructures, and the organization need to because here we need to connect and manage the technology within overall enterprise architecture to orchestrate complex processes to optimize the outcome. So that is a very important thing. So that is the really challenge actually, because we are getting the technology, but found to be very difficult, like how to manage that technology with our existing enterprise structures. That is the challenge. And of course, like the blockchain applicability that we are taking in our business for traceability, logistic, and other area. AI chatbot, that is another use cases we found in the customer service. So you asked the question, good question, like what is the change, uh, particularly due to the COVID, So again here, rather I will say the COVID probably accelerated the digitalizations, and now it become the pillar of the business continuity strategy. And our organizations taken up the 5 major agenda. We are very strict on that, and we are working a lot, and mostly those are the IT points. The first one is the working with the customer association. That is what I earlier also pointed out. So I am not going on detail, but to put it over here under this, we got a 3 point like the virtual plant tour. Actually, that is very important. Now, like a lot of customers want to like have a experience to know about the capacity, the facilities, what is the organization has. Now we made the environment where the customer can have the 360-degree view of our plant with the having the text and the audio facilities also, and the customer complaint systems also we are managing through the contact center, means merging the voice chart and all immediately, so the complaint systems are getting addressed. The third point is the audit point. Now we started auditing the customer require in a by means of the virtual means, because a lot of audits comes in, the social audit, sustainability audit, plant audit from the customer side, and we are taking help from the RealWear, so that by using that we can connect to the customers, and they can connect to our record room or shop floor, so that we have the interactions and get the problem sorted out. The second point is the digitization of the record. Now we started to digitize all our record, so that could be accessed from anywhere and any point of time. That is important. And of course, now like, because earlier we were a little conservative to take up the cloud as a one partners. Now like we started working on the cloud also, started migrating few things on the cloud, and again we are going on migrating the huge, what I say, like main systems also on the cloud, that we are looking for and we are working on that. And the another more important thing, no, we have taken a drive like to digitalize with support of the low code solutions. We adopted the low code solutions also, so that replace all the what do you call the registers in a soft floor, like they are going on capturing the data on the registers and putting that to the what do you call on the ERP or some other area. So those things we want to get link and automate with the help of the low code solutions. And of course, on top, like the IT security on the I mean the security on the IT ecosystem, that is very important. And these are the 5 major points like on the COVID actually we have considered, and this been approved from the management side, and we are working on that. This is all about.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mishra. I mean, that was really very heartening, and couple of key takeaways for me, especially is around the visibility that you created for the customer, and that is something many companies are still aspiring to create that capability, and it's really heartening to hear that you have already done it. Second, you mentioned uh, digital thread across your entire value chain, and that is another crucial aspect in the industry 4.0 kind of scheme. I mean, how do you create a digital copy of your entire process as the product is moving from one step to the other? Third is, you also touched upon cloud, which is extremely essential today, given the kind of processing power, processing capability you need if you were to run predictability and prescriptive capability. And finally, you touched upon low code. I think once again, this is quite ahead of curve, I would say. Low code in the domestic market, and we work extensively on the low code no code segment. Many companies are still evaluating, and as I said, a vicious cycle of pilot is what they have got embarked into. But quite heartening to hear from you that you have already achieved success on the low code no code. So great. We have heard from the consumer side of the story. I mean, both of you, Jasmine and Mr. Mishra, you spoke about how you have been able to cope up with the new demand from your factory side. But I'm sure, especially on the product side also, Samrat, given the fact that you manage a product portfolio, how did you see this transformation happening in your company? If you could briefly touch upon your side of the story.
Yeah, thanks, Ankur, for the question. And I think great points mentioned both by Jasmine as well as Mr. Mishra. So this is actually the common narrative that we are seeing across, all verticals today. Primarily in three areas, I would say, customers want a different kind of a model to work on. And as we speak, they are kind of getting more toward a consultative approach. So they want us to work as their consultants today. At the same time, have more skin in the game. One part is, as you rightly said, starting with the end in mind, right? So actually, I see that customers are expecting us to provide them that vision, understand their vision as a complete organization, and then provide them a roadmap how to create that digital factory or a complete digital enterprise, right? And here, at Siemens, we have our own consulting arm. In addition, we have partners like yours who come in and help create that digital vision for the customer, help create that roadmap, how to get to that, a desired end state. The second part is, as you rightly mentioned, so customers don't compare products to products these days. So I have seen that the comparison between vendors, it comes to the level of finding out the services depth, that each companies have. As we speak, so we are building a pretty big services practice for the different technologies that we have. Addition to that, we are also building an ecosystem of partners, and we are trying to identify specific partners with domain expertise in very, very specific fields. For example, semiconductors, if I say, it's a completely niche area and very different from other kind of industries. So we are looking for partners who are actually having that kind of domain depth, also building that kind of depth within the team. The last part of the change that I see these days, and which is a welcome change, is that customers are asking us, how would you help us adopt to the new technologies? So how do I support them to sustain the vision that they have put forth for themselves. And this is actually the most critical point when it comes to breaking that pilot purgatory, that you talked about. So how do I help them adopt to the technologies? How do I help them realize the business benefits, which which were promised as part of the vision that was painted, right? So there, again, two specific sides to it. One part is creating a service team who can help customers adopt, who can help customers identify those incremental use cases for change, using which they can slowly kind of expand the platform. At the same time, digital transformation also, it's a complete change management, right? So there is a lot of cultural change that happens. So I have seen factories where people working on paper for say the last 50 years, suddenly, when you put a tab in front of them, we have actually complicated their lives. So, helping them go through this cultural transition, that's also another area where our customers are looking forward to us for support. And the last part, is the point that Mr. Mishra just mentioned, which is having low-code solutions which can be maintained and managed by the customers themselves. And I must congratulate Mr. Mishra, on the specific thing that he has taken up. So as we speak, we are also, bringing in a lot of self-service capabilities within all our products, so that customers don't have to be dependent on Siemens, when they want any changes to be made. Today, a customer doesn't have any visibility. I put up a dashboard in front of him. Tomorrow, he'll start thinking about, how to kind of improve the processes, and he'll start looking for 3 or 4 or 5 more data points. So at that point, I don't want my customer to come back to Siemens every time asking, can you help me, put a new widget here? Can you help me create a new report here? So we are actually, bringing in these self-service capabilities within the platforms, which can help the customer create these changes on their own, right? By using low-code or no-code technologies. And also, combine this with a train the trainer kind of approach. So where we pick up some key users or power users, people who are more tech savvy, fresh blood, young blood, right? So who can take up these activities on their own, and they can also impart, these trainings back to the team. So these are some of the, key changes that I see, and this is what we are taking on the market.
Thank you, Samrat. This is actually my follow-on question, and I just wanted to, so to say, swap some of the perspective that you mentioned and pose this question to first Jasmine and then to Mr. Mishra. Is in today's context, the customers have also become very innovative in selecting a product, right? And it is no more buying a license and then paying AMC year on year. We have come a long way in terms of how to choose a product, how much capex to be invested, and so there are a lot of innovations that are happening, like SaaS, PaaS, outcome-based model. Essentially the so to say the cycle time to make a decision sometimes depends upon how proactive or how innovative is the platform or the product provider is. So it is very curious to hear from you, Jasmine. Did you really change the way products are acquired in your company? If yes, if you could share some of the examples from your recent past experience.
So I do want to first start off by saying the cycle time for products to be implemented, the cycle time for products to be made aware, the cycle time for products, new products coming out into the market itself has changed. We have new products coming in literally every 2 years, right? There's new technology that goes redundant in every 3 to 4 years. Like, for example, even cloud, it's not a new concept anymore. Right? I mean, literally everyone's doing it. It's become a basic that, hey, are you yet onto the cloud? Now, let's take a step back. Let's look at the product which has or which is marketed. Now, even in the area of marketing and awareness, digital marketing techniques, there's so much that has changed. You don't need an intermediary agency anymore to market. You can directly do that onto websites, onto Google Ads, etc., etc. There are two facets for a product to be really successful in any company. The first one is the product itself, and it can take a comfortable 50% of the weightage. The features, the capabilities, what value it can deliver, how much efficiency it can deliver, etc. The second part of it is your implementation partner. And that's super critical, no debate about it. Because if that implementation partner cannot implement it within the organization, no matter how good this product is, it's going to be a waste, right? So it's like, you know, the Hindi traditional saying, langur ke haath mein moti, that kind of a thing, right? Now, what does that mean? What does the implementation partner / the subject matter experts within that organization literally do? They impact not only the technological aspects, meaning integrating that system into your technology architecture and your digital landscape. That's one part of the story which can be managed. Trust me, with integrations and the kind of integrations we have, workarounds can be achieved directly, indirectly, or through maybe some very difficult situation, but it can be achieved. The second part of it is culture. And trust me, culture eats strategy for lunch. Or for breakfast, sorry, right? If you don't have an organizational culture, skill capability in hand, no matter what kind of a product, no matter what kind of implementation partner you bring in, it's just going to fail. Now, what does that impact? It really impacts the kind of governance you have in place, the skill set of your employees, your leadership mindset. What do they think is so strategic at this point of time? Does a particular area need emphasis? Right? So there are various aspects to, the success of any product implementation, whether it's in manufacturing or it could be in any area or function of your organization. I hope that answered your question.
Oh yes, and this is a similar experience. Bandar ke haath mein, something you mentioned. We were working with this customer, and one of the product which appears in the Gartner's lead quadrant, they had implemented it, and that particular product has existed, I think, for ages, and it is extremely mature product. And the customer said that ye to bekar hai. Now, is the product bad, or is my strategy bad, or did I have a strategy at all? So it raises a lot of questions. It's very easy to brand a product bad without introspecting on where did we go wrong. So that's the
Absolutely.
change in the culture or change in the strategy. Thank you very much for.
You know, Ankur, if I may add one thing more. A lot of digital transformation specialists don't have actual implementation or operational background, and they don't understand the nuances of actually putting their strategy into execution. And
True.
that's where, you know, implementation and hence your digital transformation strategies also fail.
Absolutely, Jasmine. Thanks. Thank you for that. Mr. Sharma, I am sure you have a host of experience on product evaluation, onboarding a OEM. But then, has there been anything innovative that you would like to share in this panel? Might be interesting to hear from you. Mr. Sharma?
Sarma.
Sorry, Mr. Mishra. Sorry, my apology. Yeah, go ahead.
No.
Yeah.
That's the reason I was thinking of who is Mr. Sarma.
my yes,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
Yeah, rightly actually, because certainly the vendors' roles, no, you're talking about the implementation partners or like the vendors' role, like the Jasmine pointed out rightly, like because that is very important. Because the product, let the product to be very good. Say, suppose example, I'm giving you. In my last organizations, we implemented SAP, and like that was not of level implementation partners. They have implemented it, and that after again, I hope that after 3 years, that again required to be re-implementation of the SAP, because that went with a lot of customizations and a lot of like load on that the application, means the problems arises, and of course the plant and the distribution channels also not been channelized properly, not implemented. I will say in a nutshell, the implementations partners are the very important. Actually, I will say they are the only player, no, who can put the thing in a what you call in a right way actually. Then only like that is going to be the in line actually as per the use. So that is the one. Again, along with the implementation partners, few more points like the kind of the any of the digitalization, I will say, operations, digital operations, the IT operations in the manufacturing, that is not for the IT, it is for the business. The partnership has to be there from the business, no? That is very important. For that, like for putting any digitalization's work to be in place, uh, so there has to be kind of the what do you call the champion from the business itself. They have to lead, and they have to again in turns train the backend, train as a trainer to them, that lead champion, and let them train to the backend team for the better adoption. Because again, you implemented, you let the product is good, partner is good, that has been implemented, but again how to deploy on floor actually, and deploy on the decks, that is more important. The change management and the support from the leadership team also, that is very important, because that has to come from the top to bottom. Because just to putting from the IT to like to the business, hey, you just use this product, this is very good actually, this is world class product, you use it and your like efficiency will be rise and all. They're not going to listen, because they're good to go in the their way actually. Their way is the highway actually. They're not going to take the best way. So that is again the important point, like support from the management all round. Like I will say several points will come up, like to take that in place in a right manner. So so that is what the experience I want to share over here.
Great, great. Thank you. This is
Thank
very encouraging. A quick question to Arya. Arya, do we have any question for the panelist on the chat window?
Yes, sir. We have one question from Mayur Kapasi from BASF. I'll just read it out and also post it. The question is, could you share any recent example of digitization being used for supply chain planning for inventory management and same time ensure supply continuity to customers in cross-border transactions in B2B and B2C models? That's the question.
So which is the company you said? BASF?
BASF, yes, sir.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, we are partners to BASF, but again, my expertise is mostly on the factory side. I don't really specialize on supply chain. But anyone, Jasmine, Mr. Mishra, or Samrat, would you like to pick it up? Anyone? If you think,
I can take a first jab at it.
yes,
Ankur.
please.
Although I don't have a or can't recall a case study right now, but yes, we do have solutions for supply chain planning as well as supply chain execution, right? So and especially these kind of technologies come into picture when you have a multi-location, multi-country kind of a network. You need to figure out what is the most optimum mode of transportation from point A to point B, for example. And we can also help you synchronize your complete supply chain movement along with the production schedules that you are planning on the shop floor, right? So which means that your production would be scheduled exactly in sync with when a certain raw material would reach that particular site. So maybe I would request, if possible, we could have a offline discussion, and I'll bring some of these case studies. Yeah, we do have multiple such case studies that can be referenced.
Thank you, Samrat. Yeah, Jasmine or Mr. Mishra, would you have any response on this question?
Yeah, for the supply chain management and the demand management, certainly like the lot of products are there. On the supply chain management, like we are using it for the demand management as such. The product is there. We evaluated that product, but not considered that, because from the other route around, we managed to maintain that. But certainly, like Mr. Samrat said, no, the managing the demand and total soft floor activity, and available to promise, capable to promise, and what is the asset utilizations, capacity utilizations accordingly, like the multi locations plant would be loaded. So those things could be made possible using that product. That is there actually. If required, then I can share the name also, but that is not coming in my mind directly. That is there with me on my record. I can share
Thank you.
later on if required. Thank you.
Would you attempt any response, Jasmine, or we move to the next
I
question?
don't have a recent response. I would.
Right. Okay. Okay. Thanks. Mayur, apologies if this is not really satisfactory, because as you can understand, the skill set here is largely around factory production or.
Ankur, what we can do is our first session was on supply chain.
Correct.
So we had an extensive discussion on the supply chain, and the experts from various corporates were there in the supply chain.
Absolutely.
And that session, I will share that link to Mr. The questionnaire who was raised, and also I will connect with some of the expert who are there in this, so that they can directly talk to them.
That will be so. That will be very nice. But just a 10-second comment, Mayur. In fact, PWC did the complete factory digitalization for BSF plant. We have a solid case study. If you are really interested, maybe we can have a one-on-one conversation, and I can share some of the, so to say, success stories around plant automation, and how it led to some of the improvements in the key KPIs. Okay. Arya, is there a second question? Or maybe I will.
I think this was the only question which has come from the participant. There is not many other questions.
Okay. So, given that we still have 9 minutes, I'm very, very tempted to ask one question before we close this discussion. So, and this is again very, very generic, given that we have some of the experts in the panel today. And again, this is my experience. I stand corrected. Industry 4.0 is still perceived as set of technologies, and not necessarily as something that can really lead to value drivers. That has been my experience, and so there is a lot of awareness and so to say training sessions, various kind of models that are available with us, which essentially further delays the transformation journey. Now, what are those top 2 advices that you as digital experts would like to give to the participants and the community at large? Maybe starting with Jasmine, if you could tell us what has been your experience and what are those 2, so to say, suggestions / recommendation.
The very first is start by strategizing, it's never about just technology. There's always a business outcome or an impact that's so important, which is why you're trying to digitally transform. And every digital transformation project has an business model or a customer impact. If not, you're just solving for a piecemeal part of the solution. You're not really looking at it end to end. That would be first. And second is know your company inside out. Whether it is the processes, it is the culture, it is the people, until you know have that depth of information, you can't start solutioning. And hence, even if you're being deployed to a project, do, if you call it the analysis phase, so do it. But basically learn before you start. No matter how senior you are, you're never too young or too old to learn. That's important. If you achieve these two things, you have a business impact, which implies that you have management and leadership support, right? Nothing works otherwise. And secondly, you have depth of information on how your company runs, processes, people, culture, everything, policies, etc., to navigate and implement your strategy. Otherwise, you're just lost.
Thank you. Thank you for those perspectives, Jasmine. Yeah, Ms. Mishra, what is your take on this?
Yeah, so for the any manufacturing, I hope that your question is like Industry 4.0 solutions, no? So I will share my practical experience with my last to last industry where we like implemented this one MES for the plant. That is the steel plant, one of the biggest steel plant. So there we faced a lot of challenges. Challenges means in terms of like the integration point. Integrations means the main is like because that the industry for say take up the manufacturing execution system, that is not going to work in silo actually, because that require again the planning solutions, then that require the demand solutions, that require integration actually. Integration, I mean to say taking the data, picking the data, integration points actually, and then the ERP actually, whatever the ERP. So a lot of integrations points, no interfaces, APIs are required, and that was a really big challenge actually. And I would say the challenge, but it's not like the solution is not there. Of course, that took a lot of time, and that is the one challenge. And that is the reason like a lot of the places it not work in tandem actually, because in isolation again, take one data from this application and take this one from here, then bring those into the Excel and then conclude with some solutions. So that is the one important point. The another one actually like adoption, no? The people team on the business side, how they adopt it. So that is very important. So adopt, that is the 2 points that is coming in my mind.
Thank you, Mr. Mishra. Samrat, very briefly, what are those top 2 recommendations that you would have?
I think the points that I wanted to mention are already covered. That's the challenge of kind of taking these questions at the end. Yeah. So maybe one point to add. I don't want to be repetitive though. In terms of adoption, the last point that Mr. Mishra mentioned, it would be helpful to have a continuous a governance mechanism, right? So that we can check back on a periodic basis with all the senior stakeholders. What were the targets that we have laid out for ourselves, and how are we, kind of reaching those targets? How are we actually performing? Where are the gaps, and how can those gaps, gaps be made? So maybe a steercom, or you can call it whatever. But having that kind of a governance mechanism helps in these kind of adoptions, especially when it has so much of change management involved across the org.
One thing, just sorry.
Sure,
yeah, I would like, because I would extend the Samrat point actually, because recently we are going on with the garment industry. to have the kind of the soft floor management industry 4 solutions, and they asked like they are going to improve the efficiency and the productivity by the 20%. That's the point actually. But we are surprised actually how to get the 20%. It just show us actually. But like no answer is there with him actually. No ready-made answer is there. Okay, I will do it. I will show in this way. So that is very important. No, he pointed out well actually, because they're claiming like anything, like that 10%, 20%, 12%. So that has to be there. Some measure has to be there.
Extremely valid point, and that also aligns with some of our thought process also. That govern and check back on what has been your plan and what is your actual achievement, right? So with that, I think we are at almost at the end of our discussion today. I must say that it has been extremely enriching 1 hours for me to hear some of the panelists today. So I will just take a pause, and Shaju, over to you if you have any closing.
Thank you.
Shaju, before you get started, can I just take 30 seconds?
Yeah, of course.
Sure. So I would like to thank as well to the panelists. A lot of learning for me personally. Amazing. I could see 3 common themes that was running across in today's discussion. One is that all of you have had a very formal and a comprehensive strategy when it came to embracing Industry 4.0. The second theme that I could see is around the workforce skilling, and the third one, I think so all 3 of you have reiterated at various points in time that transformational exercise is largely cultural rather than digital alone. And if organizations are able to handle this change management effectively, the returns are going to arrive much sooner in the journey. I think that it was amazing to hear this common themes coming from all of you. So thanks for that. And Shaju, just as a quick response to the gentleman who raised this question, certainly I would encourage for him to go through the supply chain master series that we've run. Ajay Nair, who leads the supply chain transformation for PWC, is best placed to handle that. But I'm aware that Control Tower is a solution that has been implemented when it comes to this inventory management. Control Tower will pull in the information from different systems and then add a layer of analytics to it, which finally helps the decision making. So that's a limited response for now, considering also the paucity of time. With that, I'll hand it over back to you, Shaju, for your closing remarks. Thank you.
I would like to use this opportunity for this wonderful session that we had organized. And I would like to extend the vote of thanks to all the panelists, Jasmine Gorima, Mr. Rakesh Misra, and Mr. Samrat Datta, also from PWC, Mr. Vishal Nanavadi and Ankur and Avantika for facilitating this session. And we have been this is the 4th session that we have done, 5th session that we have done. So I would like to extend a sincere vote of thanks on behalf of FICCI for facilitating this, and thank you for taking time and participating in this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.